Good afternoon, everyone. I am Debbie Willis, Assistant Vice Provost for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the University of Michigan. Welcome to the 2022 Disability Mini Conference toward an Anti-Ableist Academy, Advancing Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility at UM. We are hosting a total of 4 sessions that serve as an update on the progress made and the work still to be done on recommendations to close accessibility gaps across campus for disabled students, faculty, and staff at U of M. This is our final session, and our speakers today will share more about academic accommodations and the importance of leveling the playing field in a pursuit of educational equity. Now I'll turn it over to Colleen and Alan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Colleen Van Lent, and I'm a lecturer at the School of Information. I'm very excited today to speak with you as Alan and I talk about some of the ways that I personally have been using SAAS and tech and ways that we would like to see other faculty taking advantage of some of the basically the opportunities there. So I want to turn over to Alan first, where he can share more about what they do.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Colleen. It's a pleasure to be able to present with you. So make sure, I think we got some notes that people are having trouble seeing the interpreter. So I want to make sure we get that resolved. Okay. So has that been addressed?
I can mention this out loud. I know that sometimes if people cannot see the interpreter, if you go into Zoom, you'll see the gallery and you can see that there's either a single line, a little box, or sometimes a little triangle of like a Brady Bunch 3 pictures. If you click on the gallery view and open it, that's often how I will see the interpreter, is you just have to go and get more people.
Thank you very much. So, hi, everybody. My name is Alan Sheffield. I use he, him pronouns. I identify as disabled. I'm the Associate Director at Student Accessibility and Accommodation Services. The title for our presentation is Faculty and SAAS Accommodate Testing Centers and Accommodation Letters. Oh my. And when Colleen first reached out to talk about doing a presentation, I was very enthusiastic. It was also daunting, because there's been a lot of change in the last year. I started here a little over a year ago. There's been a lot of change. There's been a lot of growth. And so while this is a great opportunity, we're still in the process of trying to figure out what is it that people need to know and want to know. So we could talk about how we could frame this. We realized we wanted to share some information, but then also give you all the opportunity to ask questions, and so that we can then have a dialogue. Because this is not intended to be the end of a conversation, but the beginning of one. So thankful to have you all here, so we can have a conversation today. In talking about what is SAAS, like this may be something that's new to everybody. Student Accessibility and Accommodation Services came into fruition, I think around 2 years ago. And within it is the umbrella that contains services for students with disabilities, which is SSD, as most people know. It contains University of Michigan Adaptive Sports and Fitness Program, which is new. And then it contains the Testing and Accommodation Centers. And that was formerly, before COVID, within LS&A, and now has been moved to be within Student Accessibility and Accommodation Services. And so with that, we've grown from SSD having a staff of 9 people to over 25. And so we have, I included a link on there so you to meet our staff. I think I've been here for a little over a year, and I'm now one of the 5th most senior individuals in the entire team of 25 when it comes to longevity with the office. So if you knew somebody with the team, they're likely not here anymore, so we invite you to reach out, connect, get to know us so that we can get to know you. So with that, we'll go ahead and we're going to share the PowerPoint so that you can click on the links and go to our respective pages. one of the biggest changes besides who the teams are and like our names is Accommodate. So Accommodate was rolled out officially last fall. And it is the way in which students connect with us. We keep the records, and then we communicate to faculty and students. So we use this as our platform to then also track accommodations, send accommodation letters. So replacing the visa, VISA, which was the acronym that was used as what effectively is accommodation letter to communicate with faculty, and then also to schedule appointments and to schedule exams with the TAC. So Accommodate is a tool that does a lot in one. And it is something that as we transition to using it fully, there are growing pains with any kind of new platform, especially when you have systems that have been in place for a very long time. So, and rolling out a new platform. And we're coming back from COVID, lots of things already changing. I know that can be painful at times. So we welcome feedback and look forward to being able to talk with you about it. I've been planning for this meeting. Colleen actually gave feedback on something that she had noticed. And we went in and changed it right then and there because we realized, yeah, that is an oversight. So if we can go ahead oh, sorry, I skipped ahead one slide, but yeah. So then wanted to also make sure we talk about, go ahead, like to the TAC. So the Testing Accommodation Center, formerly before COVID, was with LSNA. And now it has been moved to Student Accessibility and Accommodation Services to serve the entire university community. So it provides support to instructors who are not able to make their own arrangements for students with the testing accommodations. And we say this, and this is a critical piece. We cannot provide every accommodated exam. We have under 100 seats for a school of 50,000 students for around 5,000 students who are connected with our office. So we provide support to faculty who are unable to do so themselves. And that is critical because we always want a student to have the most similar experience as possible. So if a faculty member has the departmental resources, has the ability to provide a equal testing experience and effective accommodations, that is the ideal. But when they are unable to do so, this is the resource that we have. And so we will spend a little bit of time talking today about that resource because we want faculty to know about this. And it is important to know that the Testing Accommodation Center is only for students who are approved for accommodations through SSD, so for disability-related reasons. It is not a testing center for all staff to use in any circumstance, like an athlete who has to miss a class can't use the Testing Accommodation Center, or like a student who misses because of an illness like COVID. Is not somebody who is set to use the testing center. And so we are approved to work with students approved through SSD and accommodations. Okay. And then, so what I started to talk about with the example with Colleen was the first bullet on this slide, which is this is a time of transition. We have a large number of staff who've transitioned and hired. We have a new process. We're coming back from COVID. We welcome feedback. We want to talk about what can we do to continue to make this system better for all parties involved. The accommodation process is a partnership. It is not just SSD dictating to faculty. It is a partnership and a shared responsibility of the institution. And so that's where we want to make sure it's clear that we are having conversations with students to gather information about what is going on for them and how the disability impacts them, so that we can then determine what are reasonable accommodations that we would then look at and say, okay, how does this apply in the classroom? Can it apply in the classroom? And that is a conversation that happens between the faculty member and the disability services coordinator, or and the department as necessary. So there are no unilateral decisions. We're not making a decision saying without talking to faculty in terms of how something would finally be implemented. So if there's ever a concern about how an accommodation would work, we want you to reach out to the coordinator. We want you to have a conversation with our office, reach out to me, so that we can then look through and say, okay, what's going on for your course? And what can we do? This is not a place where we can go one size fits all, because like faculty and this is a brilliant thing, like faculty are looking to be innovative. They teach their courses, they design their courses in ways to try to best connect with the material to the student. And that means that there's a myriad of different ways that things are taught. And we can't design every accommodation to specifically to every class. We can have a conversation about what are the accommodations, what's going on in the class, and then what would be appropriate. And that is actually the expectation, that if there is a concern about accommodation, you reach out so that we can then figure out how this can look. Then the next piece is about turnaround time. I know when I started, the turnaround time was over a month. And thanks to the commitment of the university under our leadership of Dr. Okunlami, we've worked to hire positions, get people in place, and then look at our processes. So we're constantly looking at how can we make sure that we're serving students. There are going to be times when we are busier. Students do wait to the first day of class to try to schedule an appointment. And when they do that, it can take several weeks. And so we're constantly looking at communicating earlier. We will meet with students before the first day of class. When they become accepted, we will happily have a conversation with them about and look at accommodations. And so if you have a student who's saying that the SSD is taking too long, reach out to us. Because often we can explain that, maybe the student that hasn't given us what they need. And so we will then happily look at, okay, this is what we're doing and how we can address or support the student in this time. But know that we are looking at what can we do to be better in communicating with you, with students, and really everybody involved, because this, as I said, is a partnership. Now, there are resources for accommodations, and we're constantly pulling things together. I'll share in the chat that we have guidelines that we've developed for things like deadlines. And I think one piece of feedback we've gotten is flexible is not a very
manageable.
I think, and we are looking at that language. And so the coordinators are working hard to look at, okay, what can we do to provide more consistent and clear guidance to faculty? So that is something that we're looking at doing. We are going to have surveys that we release through Accommodate. The faculty can fill out. And we're going to be asking for where are these challenges, these points of contention that maybe come up between the office or with students? Where are the opportunities so that we could continue to improve what we do and how we do it? So I don't have them in place for today, but please know that we will be putting it out there, and so you can see them. And then I did want to talk about how access is more than just accommodations. Accommodations are a small piece of the puzzle. And so I think, as you heard, this is the Anti-Ableist Academy. I identified as an individual who is disabled. I've had a hearing loss all of my life, and identify as hard of hearing. I, as an adult, have been diagnosed with chronic conditions and neurodiverse conditions that lead me to identify as neurodiverse. And that's something that has had an impact on who I am. I'm not disabled because of these conditions. I'm disabled because of being a person with these conditions, living in a world that's not designed to be inclusive of me. And so I think sometimes it gets lost in this, is that students coming to faculty, to our office, is not as simple as clicking a checkbox and going in and pulling a tab and they recognize they want to get something from the butcher. So they go grab the tab and say, wait in line, and go, okay, I'm ready to get my meat that I need. There's a lot of history that comes with students. There's a lot of challenges. And so there's stigma, and that has a role, and that can stop a student from engaging in the process as early as they should, from utilizing the steps and things that they've had because of the experiences that they have had as a student. So how we frame the work with students, how we frame what disability is and accommodation goes a long way. And so, and that impact and the interactions that students have with you as a faculty member and with your department, with the, will determine whether or not they utilize the things that they have a right to. And I do want to share, I've had a hearing loss all my life. And I would say that I'm pretty good at functioning in a hearing world, but I'm exhausted. And so there are times when I have to make a choice and say, like if somebody's being pleasantries, like at a checkout line where I decide, you know what, I can't today, especially with COVID, with masks and I can't lip read. I have to make a choice. And it's every time I interact with somebody, I have to make that choice. And I recognize that I was fatigued and I was exhausted, and I was not willing to take action for myself that I would for a student in the work that I do. And the same thing comes when I got diagnosed with celiac disease last year. Like I need to be very careful about gluten and have conversations. And that is exhausting. So I think like when we interact with students, it's important to remember that they may not be the best at communicating. They may not be on time at kind of talking at the time, like in the timeline that you would have liked them to, but they're not living in a vacuum. They have a totality of like life that's around them at any given moment. And we need to remember that, because the pressure that comes from having a disability is not light. There's a lot of weight that comes with that and baggage. So the more that we can do to address that and how we provide support to students, how we present what is an accommodation and access and address ableism, the more we can create an environment that is truly inclusive. And so with that, I'll hop off of my soapbox and turn it over to Colleen.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Alan, we have a question in the Q&A, but I'm going to hold off on the question just so the poster knows, partly to give you a break, and also just to jump in for a second and talk about why I'm here and kind of why I'm here with Alan. And it's this idea that I've been at the university. I'm a lecturer in the School of Information. I've been at the university for 14 years now teaching, and I think like some people, I had not had the greatest of a relationship with SSD and the accommodations. Not a bad relationship, but I wasn't really utilizing many of the resources they had because they weren't really helping me. It seemed like it was more work. So Alan was just talking about like the exhaustion, and I think a lot of faculty were feeling that as well. And it seemed like one more thing. So I've been really enjoying working with Alan over these past couple months, because we've been talking about things like, for instance, when how do I work with you and it not add to my workload as someone with a cognitive disability, like get me even more confused. So today we wanted to share with you some of the ways that I've worked with Alan, but also take these questions. But just to give him a break, I wanted to bring up two of the most common questions we've seen. And one of them is, what should I do when I receive this accommodation letter, right? I'm hopeful that many of you have been receiving them in your email. And so myself as a faculty member, what I've been trying to do is basically use that accommodation letter to start a conversation, right? I'll respond to the student via email. In fact, I mentioned to Alan, I sometimes got concerned because I was worried that I would email the wrong student because I have 40 plus accommodation letters. Within an hour, I noticed that new accommodation letters include the student's email directly in it, so I can reply. And I just reach out to them to let them know that I received the letter. I looked it over. I know that personally in my class, the flexible deadlines have already been built in, for instance. So I talk to the student about them, invite them to come in and have a conversation with me. So really that accommodation letter is the start of usually a brief conversation, right? It doesn't tend to be very long, but I just want the student to know that I received it and they are more than welcome to come in. This semester, I reserved 3 days at the start of the semester that I used as drop-in for any student I had been in contact with through SSD, so they could come in specifically for that reason. Right? So that's one of the big ones, is just using those accommodation letters. And for me personally, it's been helpful because I have one place where I can go and I can see everybody's like letters for my class. The next thing I want to talk to people about, and it's a new one that I've been using, it is how do I schedule an exam with TAC, the Testing Accommodation Center. And for me personally, this one has been huge because I will often have 20+ students who need accommodations, and my department doesn't have that kind of space. And so I was running around trying to find a room for each student, and it just wasn't tenable. So I've been using TAC to do the testing accommodations. I actually have a little slide in here. Kind of how it works is typically I receive the student accommodation letters. So I know, oh, I have students in this class who would benefit from extra time, or a, I don't know if benefit is the right word, but or a extra quiet testing environment. So what I need to do is I need to go in and just let the TAC know that I'll be having an exam. They ask us to let them know at least 5 days in advance. So we'll have a conversation about that. I let them know, they'll often get back to me. I give them a blank exam or a Canvas quiz up to a day in advance, and then the students can register with TAC and take the test in a separate quiet room. So I stole this slide from TAC, and I'm going to tell you how I, as a teacher, actually do it a little bit differently. One, I received the accommodation letters right away. I post to Canvas just so everyone knows how TAC works and what it is. All right. I've been trying to submit the faculty request form at least a week in advance, but today I learned that it would actually be better if on the first day of semester, I just put all my tests in right off the bat so they can reserve a space. I've had a lot of conversations with TAC about how the exam should be run. Personally, when I do an exam and I'm using the Testing Accommodation Center, I will then have a Zoom window open during that entire time so that students can interact with me or GSI. And the turnaround for getting the exams back has been immediate. So for me personally, there've been bumpy times, right? Because the students, as we mentioned, I let them know, but they still need to register with TAC. I've discovered that I still need to be, communicating with the students on a regular basis, that it's a partnership. Again, TAC isn't telling me what to do. They're offering me these options, but I still need to follow up with the students, and I still need to do things like that. But overall, the TAC process has been pretty helpful for me. I'm going to pop, I think that was, yeah. So let me pop in and see now if we have any Q's and A's. Okay, so I'm going to actually I'm going to answer one of the first ones, if that's okay with you, Alan, and then kind of send it back over to you. And it is, what are alternatives to flexible deadlines? This semester, I have been using some of the literature from CRLT, the Center for Research on Learning and Teaching here on campus. And they have an excellent document that talks about, you can let students know that in some classes, flexible deadlines just don't work, because the way that the class builds is you need to hit these milestones. So what I've been hearing about and learning is, in place of the flexible deadlines, you let the student perhaps have additional intermediate deadlines. Talk to them and say, what is it about the issue or about this assignment could you use more support on? The other thing I've been doing, since I don't use much in flexible deadlines, I make sure to always post the answer, right? If somebody has to miss an assignment for whatever reason, either through official accommodations or through illness, I've of course built into my class the ability to miss 1 or 2 assignments, and I will just give you the answer when you're done. Alan, do you have additional things to mention on that for alternatives to flexible deadlines?
Thank you. Yes, I just put in the chat the 2 documents that I was referring to that were developed by our team. I was remiss that I did not point out that we've hired a lot of people in the last year. We've hired a lot of brilliant people. We took time to find good members of the team, both at in SSD and all of our offices in the TAC. And so I keep hearing interactions, feedback about interactions like Colleen has had with the staff in the TAC and that are positive. And I want to say that yes, we have a great team. We're just trying to build things and work to learn to work effectively together. So if you in talking and framing with a student, you can say that okay, let's figure out there are some things where there is ability to be flexible in terms of there can be an extension. There may be other things like group work where we can maybe schedule it to the last, if there's multiple days, you can put it on the last day. But beyond that, we can't really continue to extend because there's other individuals involved. And so kind of having that conversation about how it could look is the starting point. And then if there are concerns, if things are not on the same page, pull in the coordinator, because then they can kind of look at, okay, what's going on for the student? What's the faculty member's concern, and determine, okay, what is going to be reasonable? Because sometimes a student may have an unrealistic expectation of what an extension is or could be, or a faculty member could also have an unrealistic expectation and say that everything has to be due on time. There is no ever a good reason for an extension. And so we try to find that balance. Our goal is not to only support the student. Our goal is access. And what can we do to ensure access for all to the institution and to your course? And then you mentioned you started talking about the TAC, if that's okay. So I'll just be upfront. Accommodate was not built for this institution. We're probably one of the largest institutions that is using many of the features in Accommodate. And I think with that, there's opportunity to we're building it to meet our needs, but it is not, I would not say it's there right now. So the team is committed, the TAC is committed to providing a supportive environment that is most like what students would experience in the classroom. You notice the biggest impact going from MLB, the old version of the TAC that was given to us by LSNA, that is very clinical almost in nature. It feels like it's a lot of seats crammed into a very monotone room versus the newly designed TAC, which has some color. It has more, it's more comfortable feeling. It has natural light, so that we can then say, you know what, we're trying to provide a good environment for students to take an exam because our exams are already stressful enough. So we're looking at, we're not trying to utilize cameras. We utilize facilitators in the room, proctors, to be able to walk around, and because students in most exam situations are not taking exams on camera. So we're, and that's what you'll notice when a student who is going to the TAC. And I think what we've heard is what faculty have interacted with the TAC is that we're trying to create a positive environment. And I give credit to the team because it would be a lot easier to say we're going to be a testing center that locks everything down and really puts a lot more onus and assumes that all students are cheating all the time, versus what we do in classrooms. We do make sure that we're not allowing students to bring in extra materials with them. We take any materials that they do bring that is allowed and provide it back to the instructor to take a look at. So we are asking a lot of questions of the faculty member. What do you do when you provide an exam to a student? So that we can then mirror that within the TAC. And so that does, I'm sorry.
This is Colleen. I was just going to pop in there and give you a slight break and talk about that. When I submit a test or an exam to TAC, there is a place in there where I can put down, how do I feel about the student taking additional breaks, for the restroom? Can they use additional information? There's definitely a place for me to put that in when I'm loading the test. So so far the student feedback has been pretty good about that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And Okay, and I will say, let's see, the one thing I do have to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just do this slide up there as a background for people who are listening in as well, because there was a question about this.
Okay. Okay. So let's see, for student needing distraction-free environment. So I keep hearing that wording. We actually don't use distraction-free environment in any of our accommodations. It's limited distraction. And so limited distraction does not mean being solely in a room. So looking at limiting distraction, the way I would frame it is if you have a room that's meant to hold 10 people, there shouldn't be more than like 2 to 3 people testing in it, like 25% capacity. But looking at, so there shouldn't be extra distractions that would be creating more of a auditory or visual burden on a student. So we do this in the testing accommodation center by not allowing announcements, by having carols, by having noise canceling headphones or earmuffs like right there at every carol. And we really put an emphasis on visual and auditory reducing visual and auditory stimuli. But we are never going to be able to create a distraction-free environment. And that is not the expectation. But your students shouldn't have to be taking an exam in an office where people are moving back and forth, where phones are ringing, people are popping in. Like that's not realistic because you're not asking students without accommodations to do that, like when they're in the classroom environment. So, okay.
Now, I had mentioned that I leave a Zoom room open during the exams, but I let the students know that if there's anyone else in that room, that we just use the chat feature. So I'm still available there, but we will use the chat instead of asking questions back and forth, but they're still able to share their screen with me as if I was there, etc.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you. And then
I think we have 2 questions open at the moment, and they're both more towards you. Actually more than 2, but there was one about working on support extending for graduate students. And then the other one was, there's a few more, but at the very beginning, maybe we can end with this one, is what are some of the biggest changes to accommodate in the last year? So I'll let you pick which one of those you'd like to go to first.
Okay. So the first attendee has been waiting the longest. So the biggest changes to accommodate. So I will say that it's been in constant evolution. I think, so I don't know that there's a lot of, let's see. I don't know that there's like a good way to go is talk about what we've changed in the past, but let's focus on what we are looking at doing. Because everything's changed in the last year. Like this is a brand new system. So one of the key things that we're focusing on right now is language. We're looking at a lot of the letter templates, the accommodation language, in order to make it clearer, to provide more direct support to both the student and the faculty member. Like the TAC team has been looking at the language of the forms that people are filling out. They keep, every time we transition between semesters and sometimes during semesters, we're looking at, okay, what happened? What can we do to continue to make this as smooth a process as possible? So they're constantly making evolutions there. And okay, I look forward to getting feedback from faculty, from students, so that we can continue to implement and make changes. We weren't able to do a lot of this before Accommodate was rolled out. I'll be upfront, like most of the people that were now using Accommodate were not here when the Accommodate was chosen and implemented. So there wasn't a rollout that I would say you would typically ideally want, which is a team kind of working from start to finish. So we are doing some things as we go. We're not like a restaurant that could shut down, like retool, retrain everybody for a couple of weeks and then reopen. We're still going and moving and supporting everybody as we kind of like try to move forward. It would be great if the university gave us a couple of weeks off, but like we're here. And so I look forward to getting that feedback. Sorry.
No, good. I'm just going to pop in for a second before you jump to the next question. I apologize. I cut you off there. I'm just going to say, because you're I've been here a really long time. I was just going to answer it as well and say, I think the two biggest changes that I have seen in working with Accommodate, the first one is that people respond to my emails, right? It seems like when I send an email, I get a response that is specific to my question and not necessarily this is a great question. We'll talk about it and we'll get back to you. Because people were doing the best they could, but as you mentioned, it's grown. I think the other thing that I've seen that's one of the biggest changes is I would highly recommend everyone go check out the website, because I feel that it has changed the focus from, oh, you need something extra, you know, you have a disability, they go read this, to something that's really, I send all of my students to the website. Every single one of my students, the first week, there are videos about temporary disabilities, right? The idea that we're trying to normalize it. And I feel like your website is really normalizing this idea of accommodations being a regular part of being a student at U of M. And so I think for me, the biggest change has just been, it's not always easy, but much easier to find what I need on your website. And if I can't, just the email responses have been very helpful.
Well, thank you. And if you like the website now, wait till we actually roll out a new one. Because like we're currently working with the old model website and making changes. But no, there are a lot of work that has been going on behind the scenes. Like we have our new staff member, like Anya Kobler, who's been to completely revamped our scholarships and financial support for students. And now we're able to give financial support quickly and more efficiently. We've got the coordinators who, as I said, like created these two guides right before the semester started because of feedback they got on attendance and assignments. We've got the academic support and access partnerships team, which is they're what was the academic coaches. And they're kind of in the process of being pulled out to be another department within SAAS. But that team is working because we know that there are gaps that students have when they come to the university. They come to the University of Michigan. They have gaps in their ability to, like, in their skills, the academic pieces. And then they also have trying to navigate a university environment with those burdens that we've talked about of having a disability. So they're a great team of three that are working tirelessly to create resources, to provide supports, connect students so that they are getting support outside of the classroom, so they're better prepared in the classroom. And so look forward to the website being fully updated to encapsulate everything that's happening. This is a complete change. SAAS is not looking at only accommodations. They're looking at what does it mean to be a student with a disability on campus, and how can we support their ability to be a student? And I ended it there on purpose, because the University of Michigan is a very special place. We believe in what the university offers, and that's not no small task for me to say because I'm from Ohio, but we believe in this university, and we want all students to be able to benefit from it. And so we look forward to continuing this work, and so that we can then support you all. Okay, yeah, and I will say we work with graduate students. The only students that we do not work with at the University of Michigan Ann Arbor campus are the medical school, who they have their own coordinators who work and do this fine work. JT Singland, I could connect people, like she's great. And so if a student is feeling like they, let's see, if there's somebody who feels like there's a disconnect, please reach out. We do a lot of work with Rackham, and they are very active themselves and trying to make sure that they're supporting students. So when it comes to descriptive closed captioning, I want to make sure I understand, because like, are you going with like beyond just closed captions that are for the deaf and hard of hearing? If somebody, Joy, if you could expand on that, because are you talking about audio description? Okay. So thank you. Audio description is something that the university is looking into and how they can continue to support. So right now, we do things case by case. Like let's, we're continuing to kind of look at what can we do. So if you ever have a concern with a student or individual who needs something, like, and for their specific class, then we can talk about it. We're not in a place where we can do audio description across the board proactively in most cases, just because of the time and the infrastructure. So closed captioning is easier to do at the moment and be proactive. Audio description is something that takes a little bit more work and support. So it's not something that we do proactively. Okay. So what should staff or support faculty and students around these processes know about accommodate, TAC, or making accommodations? Okay.
I can take a shot at this one for just a second
Please.
while you formulate a thought. So if you're a staff member who supports faculty, first, thank you. I know that you're making most of these things happen for us. And so Alan mentioned earlier that they can't actually support every class with the testing accommodation center, right? If you have a class that is going to have 40 students who all need accommodations for class at the same time, that's beyond their scope. So if the staff members could help faculty identify classes where there are a large number of students who get extended time, helping those faculty book a room is really helpful, because I know that we tend to wait till the last minute. And sometimes lecturers like myself don't have the same ability to schedule rooms. So room scheduling is actually incredibly helpful to us along that lines. The other thing I feel that staff are really instrumental in is, I know that a lot of times staff works with orientation for both new faculty and new students, new grad students, new GSI. So it really, if you can sit in any department meeting and just say, what about accessibility? Or should we be, coordinating with SAAS? I think that would go a really long way, because we tend to miss it. So one would be room scheduling, and the second would also just be trying to make sure that more and more people are aware that we should be incorporating these lessons right off the bat in student orientation, faculty orientation, etc.
Oh, thank you. And that's the first thing I wrote down is communication. So staff are, I think, the glue that keeps the university together, like the mortar, I guess, for the bricks. Like they, and often have different relationships with students than faculty do. Sometimes stronger, sometimes more prevalent, like during orientation, opportunity earlier than faculty. So the more we communicate and say, like, here are all the great resources at this institution, among which SAAS is one, that will help, because the greatest challenges come from when a student was not aware, a faculty member was not aware, and something, it comes time sensitive, because there's just people weren't able to kind of take action in advance. So we're doing lots of work to try to get to departments. One of the changes that we've recently done and are starting to fully implement is that we start doing coordinators working with students primarily on a school basis. So, and have liaisons that will work with their respective schools to build that relationship with the staff and the faculty, so that we can then have that transfer of knowledge, because the School of Information is going to be different than the School of Engineering. It's going to be different than LS&A. So we're looking to build those relationships systemically, because we want to make sure that we're not, as people leave, losing that wealth of knowledge. So, and then reach out if you have a question. I think that's the first piece. There are lots of training opportunities. The one thing I love, or one of the things I love about this campus, there's so many people trying to do the work of disability access. There's so many advocates, so many great resources like this webinar series, like the council, that there are opportunities to do trainings. I was director at another institution where I had to do everything. I was the only one doing all of the trainings and trying to engage, versus here, there's so many great opportunities. So keep a lookout for them and share them with your staff. So Carol asked about how to provide feedback. So that's a name I recognize. So you can always, if it's an immediate concern, you can share with like me, with the TAC team, like if, but then we will be creating surveys that will go out and allow for like end of the semester, be able to kind of share feedback. So please do look for that. Okay. And then asking if we work with non-degree programs, like postgraduate continuing education programs. It depends. This institution is so huge. I think if you reach out to us, let's talk through and see. But my sense would be yes, but we're finding out there's always an exception. So like, let's talk, let's figure out, okay, if not us, who? Because students have a right to access, just like we don't work with staff and faculty who need accommodations. That doesn't mean they don't have a right to access. So there's another unit on campus who would work with them. And so let's talk about that if you have specifics. Okay. Are there other questions?
Yeah, I'm not seeing questions yet. Feel free to continue to add them on. But as we, as we do near 10 minutes or so to go, I just wanted to, re-emphasize why Alan and I, thought we would want to do this webinar today. And that is because so much has changed, I feel like, in the past 3 to 4 years. And the way the university tends to work is word of mouth, right? Like, oh, go to this person, go to that person. Accommodations take too long. You don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. And so I just feel like things have changed so much that this would be a great way for us to reach out to faculty, and like Alan's face now, we'll recognize it when we get an email from you. Maybe we'll recognize your cat if he comes by. But we really wanted it to be this idea of faculty, you don't have to do this alone. It can be exhausting. It can be really exhausting. And Alan thinks I'm almost too big of a fan, but I know there's still bumps in the road, but I don't mind that because you've been receptive as we've talked about it, and I continue to learn a lot too. So I wanted faculty to walk away thinking, oh, this is a real resource. This isn't just one more thing they're asking me to do that doesn't, not only does it not save me any time, but it's not actually helping the students either. I find that a lot of my students have really enjoyed the agency of scheduling those exams, knowing they can do it on their own and not relying on me to frantically find a room at the last moment. So I feel like it has really helped my students. And I've been very pleased with when a student says their accommodations have not gone through yet. I've always reached out and it's been taken care of very quickly, one way, or I don't know how, but I don't ask details. I just know that the students have said we're all set now. And so, and Alan, yeah, like I said, if you wanted to also I really wanted to give you that chance to say, hey, this is how it's different. And these are the things you wish faculty knew.
No, and I appreciate that. I think I appreciate having a fan because in the role, sometimes I get lost in the, there's a lot left to be done. That's just my personality. And like being able to hear, oh, this went well, being able to hear positive interactions people have so that I could share them with the team. I appreciate that. While also hearing that there are ways that we want to continue to improve, because like this is an opportunity to work together and to continue to kind of be able to get to where we want to be, because we know we're not there yet. And so I do appreciate this and recognize that, as I said, like the staff's completely changed. So what you experienced 4 years ago, pre-COVID, much less what you experienced a year ago, is going to be completely different. The team is different, the processes are different. And so please reach out. Don't let a past experience define like what you choose to do. And even with me, like we've been inundated, we've been short-staffed, trying to step in and do a lot. Like if you've reached out, reach out again. Let me know and follow up so that we can, because we're constantly trying to look at what we can be doing. And there's just a lot happening. But we're finally at a place where we have a full team. Now, like how long we keep that, I think in this day and age, but We have the team. They're a brilliant team. Thankful to have them. We have a leader in Dr. Ogunlami, who's constantly pushing and saying, okay, what can we be doing and how can we be doing it better, and keeping disability as a part of the conversation. Because and so we have an opportunity. Now, I will say that if I could leave faculty with one thing, just remember, you are not alone, and you cannot make a decision on your own. When it comes to accommodations, you cannot say no. Not saying that the answer won't be no, but it needs to be a conversation with the university, like us. And if we have to pull in like ADA compliance, like we pull in, we'll figure this out together. But that's where, like, just make sure that you know that you're not alone. And if you ever don't get an answer from a coordinator, you're not sure, reach out. I have my email in there. Okay, let's see. And no, my cat didn't make an appearance. He was here for all up to the presentation. Then he listened to me and gave me a little bit of respite. But he's super adorable. Would have been like the best part of the presentation, I'm sure. But no, I'm thankful to be able to talk with you all. So I have some links I think I'm going to try to share too, but we have a link that we could share about presenting and coming to talk with the team that I won't put in there. We're not going to be able to do every presentation that people want immediately, but we will work to say, okay, how can we get the appropriate people to talk with your faculty, with like orientation, like, because we want to get out there and we want to be in front of and be connecting with everybody. So, okay.
Right. Helen, it looks like we might be, oh wait, we have, that was you in the chat. We might be giving everyone the greatest gift of all, which is the gift of time, and giving everyone 5 minutes back. But Pam, I believe everything, everything here will be available afterwards. A video of the conference sessions are going to be available on the website soon. So you'll be able to come back, and we hope that you'll find a lot of these links helpful to you. But even again, if we really want you to come away with the idea that you are not alone in this. I've been very excited to work with this, and I can see great things happening in the future. So thank you so much, Alan. I know you've worked hard on this. And please tell your staff, thank you as well. Last note, there is an outreach request form in the chat as well, if anyone would like to use that.
Thank you so much for pulling this together and for everything you've done. I appreciate that. And thank you for the Access team, interpreters, captioner, and then for all of the council, Pam, and like the team, Deborah, for putting things together. This has been amazing.
Yep. All right. I think we're good.